How do you read the Supreme Court's decision to refuse Jack Smith's request for extradition? And will it result in a long delay of the trial that's set to begin on March 24th?
Well, look, Jonathan, I thought you did a great job. Lawyers always say cert because it's so difficult to say certiorari. So you sounded very much in the know there. And that's the one thing that we know, right? We know how to say certiorari. What we don't know is precisely what the Supreme Court's ruling means for the timeline. There are a lot of different variables, and it's hard to predict. Here's what we do know. The District of Columbia Court of Appeals will get first crack at deciding on whether Judge Chutkan was correct when she said Donald Trump's immunity motion was due to be denied. That's important because if he wins on his immunity claim, the entire prosecution against him is dismissed. It will be out of business for Jack Smith. But that immunity motion, frankly, is not particularly strong, and the expectation is that the Court of Appeals will affirm Judge Chutkan. And the question is, how quickly did they reach a decision? We know that they'll have oral argument on January 9th. They could perhaps issue a decision as quickly as the 11th Circuit just did in Mark Meadows' case, coming out with their ruling on the next business day following argument. Or they could take weeks or months. They took a full year in the last immunity case involving Trump they considered. And then, of course, there are delays involved in getting that appeal next to the Supreme Court. That's to say it could be a lengthy process or a quick one, depending on how the courts are inclined to move.
I noticed that you said the D.C. Court of Appeals would get a first crack, and I've zeroed in on first crack. Is that because a smaller, like a three-judge panel, takes a look at it first, and then it could go to what's the legal language? En banc, meaning the entire appeals court could then look at it?
Yeah, that's exactly how this works. The trial judge rules. The next stage is the first layer of appeal, which is a three-judge panel in the appellate court. Trump could even ask for a motion for rehearing if he loses with that three-judge panel. It gives him a little bit of extra delay, but it's usually something that doesn't, work out for a defendant to ask for rehearing from the same judges who ruled against him. Then he's got 45 days to ask the court to rehear en banc, which would mean all of the active judges on the D.C. Circuit would participate. And then he can apply for certiorari with the United States Supreme Court. There's one additional wrinkle we should mention. In Jack Smith's motion here, he asked the Supreme Court to consider if they would not hear the case directly, if they wanted it to go to the Court of Appeals, he asked them to consider taking the case immediately following the Court of Appeals decision without waiting for en banc and the usual time for certiorari. The Supreme Court has been silent so far as to that request, so we don't know what their thinking is.
All right, let's talk about Colorado. And Trump's legal team is expected to appeal the Colorado Supreme Court ruling after the Christmas holiday. What are their chances of reversing that ruling on appeal?
Right. This one, when you look at it legally, the Colorado Supreme Court's decision is very well based. There was a 5-day trial. The trial judge found that Trump was involved in insurrection. And in order to be disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, you have to be an officer of the United States. The Colorado Supreme Court makes a compelling case that Trump is included there. But the problem is there's a sense that the Supreme Court will be very hesitant to remove the decision from the hands of the voters. They may take a procedural off-ramp, finding that this proceeding simply isn't something that can be teed up by the courts, that Congress would have to pass laws that would cabin how this process would work. And so I would say that the leading expectation is that the Supreme Court will find a way out of the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling.
And we've got less than 3 minutes, and I've got like 5 really important questions. But, some folks on social media are claiming that President Biden will automatically win Colorado in 2024 because of this ruling. Please explain why that is incorrect.
Right. This won't have anything to do with a Biden victory. It simply relates to whether Trump is on the ballot or not. Although, as a practical matter, in 2020, Biden had about 54% of the vote in Colorado, and Trump was in the low 40s. So I think that's where that sort of view comes from.
Got it. The Supreme Court, and I know you said that the court would probably look for a procedural off-ramp. But at some point, the Supreme Court will have to get involved in both the Colorado case and the immunity question. The question is, how will the Supreme's rule? Is one or both or neither of these cases a slam dunk for democracy? And could they actually rule, meaning the Supreme Court, that a former president who incited an insurrection is not only eligible to be on the ballot, but is also immune from prosecution?
So, look, I think the short answer, Jonathan, is that if they rule that presidents are immune from any form of criminal prosecution, then democracy is over. What stops Joe Biden from committing all sorts of crimes to stay in office, regardless of the outcome? What stops any president from using the office for personal financial gain? I just don't see how the court can rule that Trump is entitled to absolute immunity here, or even that trying to interfere with state election counts is within the outer perimeter of his duties without opening a real Pandora's box.
And one more real quick question. Michigan and the phone calls obtained by the Detroit News that show Trump and RNC chairwoman Ronna McDaniel personally pressured local election officials to not certify Biden's win in that state. Does this revelation fit into the larger universe of Trump's legal problems?
You know, it does. I think we knew this call had taken place. We didn't know its content. There wasn't a tape recording. Prosecutors like to be able just to push the play button and let the juries hear a conversation for themselves. And this shows that President Trump was involved at such a granular level of detail in the efforts to interfere with the vote counts. The President of the United States placing a phone call to 2 Republican county canvassers in Wayne County in Michigan. That is quite a phone call for the president to be on, particularly offering them legal counsel in exchange for their refusal to vote to certify the election. That's a big one.
A big one, not a perfect phone call. Joyce Vance, as always, thank you very much for coming to the show.